So we're going to put the portability and the non-portability head to head and see how much we're throttled. Again, there's a huge difference. I'm really surprised. Wow. Tenfold. We've been using Starlink in the RV all around the country for about 6 months now. In our last internet video, which was back in July, we covered a little bit, but a lot of you said that you wanted more information on it. So we're going to do that today. I also have some really surprising tests that I'm going to share with you. We also have Starlink at our cabin now, and that particular installation is residential with no portability. So we're going to put the portability and the non-portability head to head and see how much we're throttled. One technical aspect though that I would like to discuss so we can have a little bit of ammunition going forward is this idea of throttling or network management. Some might call it quality of service. And basically what that is it is a network's ability to prioritize traffic based on whatever. In this particular case, we're talking about throttling based on whether you are in a portable situation like the RV model or the residential plus portability. And the idea there is that a internet provider can give different quality of service to different customers based on what they're doing, what their plan is, etc. Pretty common all across the board. You may have heard me mention network management a lot in the cellular data world, and that's basically the same kind of thing where they will manage the network, aka deprioritize you if you've gone over your 23 gigs or whatever it is versus somebody who hasn't. But the idea is the same across the board. It's prioritizing traffic when there is congestion on the network and sometimes when there's not. We'll get into that more as we talk about some of these tests. It's pretty interesting. Another quick note about terminology as I go into this, you're going to hear me talk about mobility and portability, and I get those two mixed up quite a bit. In the Starlink world, you can add a thing called portability to your service, your residential service, that allows you to go outside of your home area. Mobility is a whole different thing, and that means actually using Starlink while traveling. But you can't do it right now. So if I mess up and I say mobility, I'm really talking about portability. The setup, the equipment is super simple. There are 2 pieces of gear and 2 cables, and that's it. You got a power cable that goes to the router. The router is basically your central hub. It is Wi-Fi only, but it is 2.4 gigahertz and 5 gigahertz Wi-Fi. So you can use whichever one based on whether you need distance or whether you need speed. There is an Ethernet option that you can add to it, but it is an add-on, like a little dongle that you can plug into it. The other cable is basically running from that router to the antenna. You'll see those when I do the testing. Everybody's seen those, little dishy McFlat face, I think is what they call it. And that's it. 2 pieces of gear, 2 cables, you hook them all together, you power it on, you install the app. It's super easy. And I know I said it wasn't going to go geeky on this, so I'm not. But this antenna is super cool. It just looks like a little flat piece of plastic, but under that flat piece of plastic are about 1,200 tiny little antennas that work together to create a phased array and aim a beam. I'm going to link a video down below if you really want to geek out and see how this thing works. This video is awesome, but I'll leave it at that and let you go dig into that stuff. Now, the only other thing that I'll say about setting up the system is the antenna placement. A clear view of the sky is key, absolutely key. You're going to see that where we've got it out here, we've got a nice big open sky, but even with that, these antennas have 100 degrees of visibility. So it'll point in one particular location, but it can actually see 100 degrees. And you'll see in the app, you can actually see trees and things like that that are blocking it once it collects that data. Some people put this thing on a pole to get it up high. We haven't done that because we found that in our situations where we've been camping, a vertical placement is much easier to deal with, meaning that I can move it forward and backward on our roof. I just set it on our roof and I run the cable in through our garage. That gear, the router, cables, antenna, will run you about $600 plus taxes and shipping. And that is the same equipment whether you're talking about RV or residential. Now, in regards to the type of service that you choose, that's where it gets a little bit hairy, and that's where I really want to clarify some things. There are 2, but really 3 types of residential-ish service that you can get. The normal residential service, you have a service address, it's $110 a month, and you will not be able to use the dish outside of your home area. but you do have what they call normal priority with the home version. You can change your address in that residential version from one place to another, but being able to change that address is based on availability. The next option besides residential that you can add to the residential is called portability. That's an extra $25 a month, and it makes the entire service $135 a month. When you add portability, you still have the same service, the same normal priority service at your home or wherever your home base is. It could be a GPS location, it doesn't really matter. But whenever you're in that home bubble, you have priority. But with the portability feature, when you go outside your home area, it still works, but it is deprioritized. The third option is called the RV version. Now in the RV version, you have absolutely no home base. When you sign up, you don't even put an address in, just a shipping address. So it's kind of like the residential plus portability, but there is no home, and you'll always be deprioritized. The benefit of the RV version is that it can be completely shut off and turned back on at any time. So the best option for that is when you've got maybe a snowbird situation where you're home for 6 months and then you travel for 6 months and you want to shut it off while you're home and only use it on the road. That's a good option for you. I will also note here that there are 2 more services available. There's a business service and a maritime service. Go click on those, you'll be surprised. I want to get to the details of how you order and what system we recommend. First, I want to show you the app because there's some pretty cool stuff in there that we're going to use when we get to the testing. And then I want to show you the testing, which is really eye-opening, and it completely changed what I would have recommended from what I knew before I tested. All right, so we've got the cool little Starlink app right here on any mobile device, really. There's a couple of things that I want to show you in here that I use that are kind of key. I'm not going to go through the whole app and all the settings. One of them is the settings section. You'll notice in here that there are 3 options. One is for splitting the 2.4 gigahertz and 5 gigahertz networks. So if you want to see 2 different SSIDs, 2 different networks when you go and look at your Wi-Fi options, you can split out the 5 gigahertz and 2.4 gigahertz options and name them whatever you want. You can also set up custom DNS, not going to go into that. There's another option there called Bypass Starlink Wi-Fi Router. That's if you hook this up using the Ethernet option and you want to just completely shut it off as a router and just have it be a WAN point from, say, like a Peplink or something like that. We're going to test that later in the year once we get all of our systems set up on the new RV, but this is where you would do that. The other option I want to show you in here is this visibility. This is what I was talking about when I said that it has a 100-degree view and it can see a big area of the sky. It kind of has to because of the way it works. It has to track satellites across the sky. These satellites are always moving. It's not like the satellite dishes where you point it in one position and it just stays there. It has to be able to track satellites across as much of the sky as it can see. And you can see that even here with this giant sky, I've got some blockage in front of it and a little bit behind it. Not a whole lot here, but the more this blue area is red, the more obstructions you have and the more you're going to see interruptions based on that obstructions. Now, if I go back here and I go into my statistics, this is the other place that I use quite a bit. Here's where I can see all the details on my uptime and outages. This thing is always, at least for us, has always had little blips, a few seconds here, a few seconds there where it goes out. And that's really not that big of a deal for things like streaming because most of those can handle it. I like to click on the outages button here and actually see a detailed list. I click on the 5-second plus. And I can see at 4:35, which was just a few minutes ago, I had a 7-second outage and no signal receive. The longest one I had today was at 10:23 this morning. It was for 15 seconds. And there's a few on down the line here, and you can see you can actually filter this. The other tool that I use in here a little bit is the speed test option. The cool thing I like about the speed test isn't the normal speed test. I use an actual speed test app for speed testing because I don't trust it. It's probably accurate, but I would rather use a third-party tool. But what I do like in here is this swipe up for advanced. And this is where I can see 2 different speed tests. The Starlink speed, meaning the dish to space and to the internet and all that good stuff, but it will also test my connection to the router itself. The reason I really like that option is when I was doing my testing, for instance, I ran this to make sure that my connection to the router was good. You know, I should see, like right now, I'm not getting great Wi-Fi speed because I'm kind of far from it. I'm connected to the one in the cabin, which is about maybe 80, 100 yards that way. So I know, like, if I ran a test right now, my internet speed is about 64 megabits per second, but my Wi-Fi speed is only 35. So my bottleneck right now is my connection from my phone to the router. So if you're getting slow speeds, you can use this and see whether it's your connection to your router or whether it's the actual Starlink. I did some testing yesterday to kind of see what was what with the residential versus residential with portability, and I was pretty surprised. Check it out. I want to make sure the tests are even and fair. So I have separated out the 2.4 and 5 gigahertz antennas or SIDs on each router. So now I am connected to 5 gigahertz on both the cabin Starlink and the RV Starlink. And I'm saying RV Starlink, it's really residential plus mobility. I'm getting about 50 something here and about 6.1 over here. And I'm going to swipe up for advanced. Start advanced test. This way I can test the speed from each phone just to the router to make sure the router should be, well, I'm getting like 74 here now. The router speed should be way higher than I'm getting over Starlink. I just want to make sure that the Wi-Fi is not a bottleneck and that the actual Starlink is what I'm testing and not the Wi-Fi. Getting like 300 over here and like 200 over here. Yeah. Okay, that's the main thing I wanted to see. I wanted to make sure that I'm not testing the Wi-Fi. So now I'm going to switch over here and run the speed test app. That way I'm testing it outside of the Starlink app, and I'm going to hit them simultaneously and see what we get. All right, I'm getting a good 40 down here and like 3 down over here. Now remember, I'm testing these simultaneously, and the whole idea is that if a residential Starlink and an RV or mobile Starlink are competing for the same bandwidth, then this guy's going to win. This guy's going to get deprioritized. And yeah, it's really getting deprioritized. So I got 32.8 down here on the cabin Starlink, and then I've got 32 down, 6 up, 4 down, 2 up. I'm going to run a few more tests here. Go. Go. Getting up to the 30, still low over here. Shoulders are getting tired. Wow, big difference. 23 down, almost 3 up, 3 down, and like 0.6 up. Now I'm going to test this one by itself without this one running. This is the RV / mobility Starlink. 5, 6-ish. Quite a big difference in the mobility versus the residential. Simultaneous test again. Again, there's a huge difference. I'm really surprised that it appears that the RV / mobility version of Starlink is pretty well deprioritized. I mean, it can sometimes be good and sometimes be really, really just kind of bleh. And now it kind of makes sense. If we're getting deprioritized pretty frequently with the RV / mobility Starlink, yeah, 45 and 10 here, 5 and 6 here. So my next step I want to do, I'm going to swap phones. I'm going to swap their Wi-Fis just to make sure that I'm not skewing it here, because this is a newer iPhone. This is the iPhone 14 Pro, and this is the 12 Pro Max. So they could have newer radios in here, so let's swap them around. Both are ready, and go. Getting 9 or 10 down here now, and I'm getting like 50, 60, almost 70 down over here. 70, 80. Wow. Tenfold. Oh, now it's climbing back down. I'm still averaging 78 and 10, 13 and 11. Wow. I was super surprised to see how much better service was when you're not deprioritized, when you've got normal priority. And that in turn really affects the recommendations that I'm going to give you as far as what I think you should order. So let's first talk about how you can order this, because it's a little bit confusing as to how you can get this now and not have to wait. So the RV version is super, super easy. You go to starlink.com, click RV at the top of the page, enter your shipping address, put it in, you're done. And this, like I mentioned, is a great option if you're going to be snowbirding or something where you want to shut off service completely, not pay a dime for service when you're not using it. Now, of course, these are all in billing cycles. So when I talk about adding portability or turning on and off service, you know, they're not going to prorate months. They're going to say, okay, you shut off service and you're going to have service through the end of your billing cycle. And of course, when you kick it back on, it's all billing cycles. They don't prorate. Now, getting the residential service or the residential plus portability, they're the same. You don't order it with portability. You add portability to residential service after you get it and set it up. So we're going to jump into how do you order the residential service. Go to starlink.com, make sure residential is selected at the top of the page, click on check availability, which is at the bottom of the page, enter your address and click order now. If it says service for this order is only guaranteed at this location, you're good to go, order away. If you see order now to reserve your Starlink, that means you're going to go on the wait list, which is boo. It could be forever. We were on a wait list for like a year until I discovered this workaround, which I'm going to tell you now. If you get that, hit the back button, go back to the residential and the check availability screen, zoom in on the map to an area where it has plenty of coverage, and just get a general feel for that. When I was testing this, Utah was wide open. Now you want to go to Google Maps, which is just maps.google.com, zoom into that same area, drop a pin by clicking on the page just in the middle of nowhere. It can be near a street or whatever, it doesn't really matter. Then on the bottom of the page, you're going to see a GPS coordinate link for that pin you just dropped. Click on that, and then on the left-hand side of the screen, you're going to see a Google Plus code. Click on that little button next to it that says copy the Google Plus code, then go back to that availability page for Starlink, and then paste that code right in there where you put your address before and click on order now. You're going to see that it's completely available to order with that service address, and you can put in any shipping address that you want. You do that, you have it shipped to wherever you're going to be or your home or whatever. Then once you get the system and get it set up, you're going to go into your account settings and then add portability. And this will basically let you have your system anywhere, you know, whether you're home or not. If you live in Kansas and you picked Utah, you're going to technically be out of your home area, but it will work. And it'll work just like the RV system does, deprioritized, but working. So once you get that set up, you now have residential plus portability, which is effectively the same as the RV version. The difference being that you can now actually try to change your service address to get that non-deprioritized or normal prioritization traffic. And you know, there's no hurt to trying to change your address, because if you're not in your home area anyway, it doesn't really matter. So I was able to, once we got our cabin, I did the same thing for both of these systems that we have. I ordered them for a service address in Kansas, and then I added portability. And with the cabin version, I was able to change it to our actual address here at the cabin, which allowed me to do that testing that you just saw. So I had one portability and one not. So it doesn't hurt to try to change your address. As a curiosity, to verify and even more nail down that the deprioritization is happening, I changed our service address on our one that we use in the RV to the same address as the cabin, and both of them behaved unthrottled exactly the same. So that even more confirms to me that one is throttled and one is not. And if you try to change your address and it doesn't work, you know, it doesn't work. Try it again later. It might waitlist you, I don't know. But again, I found it very interesting that this area where our cabin is not in a current service area. I could not order service here, but I could order it to Kansas, have it shipped here, add mobility, and then change my address, and it worked great. And I have unthrottled service here at the cabin. So as far as what we recommend is we recommend doing the residential and adding portability. It gives you a lot more flexibility, a lot more options. The only exception to that is if you only want service part of the year. If you want to be able to shut off service and not pay the $135 a month, then get the RV service. I don't know, I don't think right now you can change an RV service to a residential service. That may change in the future, but right now there's no option to do that. If you are a snowbird and you're going to use the Starlink at your home and on the road, then that's definitely the best option. And you can add and remove the portability feature as much as you want. I actually took it off of our cabin system. I had added it when we first set it up, and then I was able to take it off and make it just residential and save 25 bucks a month. So you can add and remove that service. But once you're on an RV service, it's RV service only. There's no home, there's no residential, there's never any situation where you're not deprioritized. Some quick final thoughts before we say goodbye. I want to note that this is October of 2022, and everything that I've just said is based on things that are available and known then. A month from now, Starlink could change the rules. They're changing them all the time, but this is how it is now. Also, if you're going to just be streaming and doing basic internet stuff from the road, Starlink by itself is a pretty good option, but again, only if you have a good view of the sky. If you get into a campground where you've got a lot of trees or even partial coverage, it's gonna be a huge pain. Additionally, if you're doing things that require a much more stable connection like a voice over IP or a remote desktop session, some of those can be resilient to network outages of 15 seconds or so, but a lot of them also cannot. When I used to work for IT and I had a remote desktop session, even the littlest of glitches would shut me out and I'd have to reconnect and log back in. It was a big waste of time. We do really like Starlink, but it is not going to be our sole option. We're still going to use our AT&T, Verizon, T-Mobile, all of that in conjunction. So if you do have to work from the road, it's good to have diversity of connection options. Starlink can certainly be one of those, but I would not rely on it as my sole connection option. We did a video just recently on how we use all those together using our Peplink router. So if you're a work from the road kind of person, I'll link that at the end of this video so you can go check that out. Going forward in our travels, now that I know there's such a huge difference in the home address versus not home when you've got the portability option, I am going to try changing our address with every location that we go to. And I'll note that in our blog posts and things like that. And I'll have a follow-up probably later on next year as to how that went, because I'm honestly not sure how many times you can change addresses. But seeing how it can actually improve our speeds tenfold, I'm certainly going to try. Now, our one at the cabin is going to stay residential, but the one we take on the road, I'm going to leave that with mobility, portability. I keep messing that up. And try changing our address every time we go to see if I can get preferred access, preferred speeds everywhere. I'm sure it's not going to work everywhere, but we're going to try, and we'll let you know how that goes. Again, thank you for watching. If you haven't already, please click that subscribe button. Please click the like button. If you have any questions, please put them down below. I'll try to get to those, and we'll see you next time. Seriously. I went inside for a while, they came back out. As soon as I hit record, train. It does also offer portability. It does also offer mobility, portability. I don't understand kids these days with their loud mufflers on like lawnmower engines. Sounds like a big weed eater. Wee, wee, wee. I mean, there's really no downside to trying to change your address. Sorry about that.